Hello, this is Dale Matthews. Welcome to Inside News for Wednesday, the 20th. And both of us are going to be speaking in kind of a gravelly voice today. Hi, Mike.
Hello, Dale.
Are you my father? Okay, so the reason why.
Yes, all right. Yes.
The reason why is that Sunny Valley Sand and Gravel, or as they say out there, Sunny Valley Gold and Gravel, is back with county commissioners, and they're talking about the fact that, big surprise, they're going to have to reverse themselves completely, and it's going to cost us a bunch of money and be sort of embarrassing. But that's not really news. So good night, everybody. All right. So, yeah.
Who could have seen that coming?
Yeah, well, everybody and their brother tried to warn these guys. It seemed awful bad that we just are always on top of them, but they keep making these mistakes, and people keep trying to tell them. In fact, their own staff people try to say things to them, and they just won't listen. So, well, we'll start off with, here is the head of the department, to the planning department, that's trying to warn the commissioners. Mike?
Several years ago, the planning director and legal counsel got together and decided, for matters that were under appeal, that it would be advisable not to adopt an ordinance because it could result in necessity to repeal an ordinance if LUBA reversed or made some significant changes. And so that was the policy that we were operating under when this case was, a decision was rendered in, and that's why we have the delay between decision and findings and now consideration of an ordinance. But as far as immediate impact locally, I don't see anything that happens.
I wonder, I don't recall being part of that conversation with the previous planning director and the previous legal counsel on establishing that new policy. I think to a degree it makes sense, especially if we have a history of cases from Josephine County going to the Land Use Board of Appeals with a remand to change something or to look at something a little more closely that we had gotten wrong. I don't recall any of those situations happening since that policy was changed by planning and legal. So if we don't have a history of it, my understanding is that my personal feeling is that by the diligence of our Rural Planning Commission, the evaluation of this board and codifying its findings in a way that has not met with any challenge successfully through LUBA, that we've got a pretty good track record of being right here by our actions at the county level. So I don't have any problem necessarily with saying that, we can move forward with that. And in the worst case scenario, I suppose, is that there is the only thing we're out from a county perspective is having to go back and redo an ordinance that may need amendment. So if we're discussing.
Is that a question that is wanting a response?
No, I don't think we need one.
So guess what happened? Well, in worst case scenario, so guess what? Worst case scenario happened. Okay, some of the definition. Please tell everybody what LUBA is, in case there are some people who know everything and other people who know nothing, and I'm somewhere in between. What does LUBA mean?
Land Use Board of Appeals.
Right. So
Yes.
What I tried to put down there at the bottom of the screen was the people in Sunny Valley live in a kind of a little bedroom community, a quiet little bedroom community, and they would like to keep it that way. And their area is zoned rural residential. We don't have residential here in Josephine County. We have rural residential, okay? it's not zoned commercial. So Andreas Bleck comes in and he says, hey, I'm a capitalist. I've got in mind, I want to mine a bunch of gravel in that community. I want you to rename that whole area, not rural residential with kids and families and stuff. I want it commercial so I can dig up gravel and roar down their highways anytime I want to, their little streets and stuff, with these gravel trucks.
Mm-hmm.
And the folks out there, there are plenty of people who say, hooray for capitalism, good deal. And then there are others saying, hey, what about the quality of our life? Why are you reclassifying our area? Mike, any guesses about why the county commissioners would want to reclassify that area from rural residential to commercial?
Well, I'm guessing because Andreas Bleck has a connection to one or more of these commissioners, and they want to, do for him some sort of a favor. Now I've said this a number of times. I don't know. Okay. I've never been out to this place, so I don't really know the layout of things here. And I'm not necessarily against mining gravel where you can do it. So I'm not, like I said, I'm not familiar with any of the circumstances here. Proximity to other places, what times of the day or night they're going to be doing this sort of thing. I really don't know anything about it besides what I've learned watching, people talking about it. Now, naturally, if this is going in next to your house and you have a problem with it, you're going to be vocal and you're going to come in there and, say a lot of stuff. So, I'm not one to be the proper one to make a call on this sort of thing. Now, reclassifying a whole area, which could ultimately bring other undesirable circumstances or lowering of people's existing property values. These are all issues that play into this thing here. So I really don't know where to come down on this whole deal. I think
does it remind you of the Illinois Valley, where the people out there, brilliant or not brilliant, say, we don't want helicopter noise, gravel noise, helicopter noise here in our community. Yes, we're in favor of capitalism. Yes, we think Erickson Air Crane is a fine company and helps us in many ways. But here's what we're saying. And then the county commissioners, we're going to force them to do it.
Okay, well, all right. That's a very interesting thing there. What ratio of the people are we talking about in terms of the Sunny Valley people? Is there some sort of a survey that says that 80% of the people in this area didn't want it? Or
that's what they say. That's what they said.
Well, that's what they say. But I mean,
nobody presented any evidence to the contrary, including Andreas Bleck.
Okay.
And nothing to dispute that survey of the community that they took. Now, I would imagine he's got some money. He probably could have paid $25,000 to do a survey that would tell everybody how to vote on the levy. No, that's somebody else. But he could do that, but he didn't.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know. Boy, I think it would come down to if the majority of the people in that area don't want it, then that should be what it is. So you know what? Generally speaking, people in government are against you doing anything constructive, really anything constructive. So the fact that they were so much in favor of this leads me to believe that somebody was getting greased somewhere in the timeline there.
With the meaning of the word Greece being just like Greece and its relationship to the euro and being bailed out by Germany, but that's another story.
You're right, exactly. Yes, that's exactly.
We're being greased. Yes, greased.
Yes.
Look, to me, the more important part of the story is that citizens out in the IV said, we don't want this, right or wrong, we don't want this. And they went directly to Erickson Air Crane and they told them, look, it's not that we don't like you, we don't like these loud helicopters, and they won, and those guys backed down.
However, hang on a second.
Okay.
Here we are representing it as though the people in Illinois Valley went to Erickson Air Crane. No, it was the people who showed up at the at the meeting, and this is in terms of the population down there, is probably a micro percentage.
Right. I should have said people, not the people. Okay.
Right.
People out there said this is what we want. And it showed that they could get things done the way they wanted them done.
Right.
Now, people,
and they did it.
So Sunny Valley, not Illinois Valley, but Sunny Valley, not everybody that lives there said, this is not what we want. And so what did they do? They didn't send a letter to Erickson Air Crane because that wouldn't have helped. What they did was they said, okay, you have passed this ordinance and we've asked you not to. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to get together enough signatures, which they did. We're going to put it on the ballot to shut this thing down. Really?
Is that coming up in May here?
I'm sorry. Here's where my knowledge runs a little bit of dry. It's either May or November. But what the commissioners are now faced with is they've got one guy that really would like this to happen. They would like economic development to happen in our community. Okay. They've got citizens who say, no, we want this quality of life and we think this is going to be degrading it. Okay.
Right.
We've got something that's going to appear on the ballot. And they've got the Land Use Board of Appeals, which is done, you heard the word, remand. That means, no, you cannot do this. Rethink this thing, which everybody and their brother was trying to tell them was going to happen. And Simon says, but we've got such a great, history since he's been in office of doing things even ahead of the Luba appeal. And so just one more thing. So it was suggested to them, why don't you wait till the Luba appeal is over, and then you won't have to reverse yourselves if they say no. No, we don't want to wait. No, but doesn't it make sense to wait, because you're going to take time and effort and money and all the rest of this stuff to do this, and why don't you wait? No, we don't want to wait. So they didn't wait. So now what's happened?
Yeah.
They demanded it.
What's the specificity on the remand there? What are they saying that they did?
I believe that what it is, there are people that know volumes more about this than I'll ever know. But I believe the reasoning behind it is you can't just go in and reclassify this to favor one over another. You can't just put money into rogue roasters that hurts everybody else. You can't just pick a winner and a loser. It should not be up to you to do this.
Okay, but in the two examples that you just gave, no controlling legal authority is stopping them from doing exactly what you just said. So it doesn't really apply to the Sunny Valley Sand and Gravel thing.
No.
Listen, they ran one up the flagpole and thought that they could pull it off, and they didn't get it. And so I'd be interested to know what it is that Luba is now saying about it. Are they saying you can't do that? In which case, there's no point in putting it on the ballot because it sounds like it's already dead.
Yeah, but here's the thing. What they're going to talk about next in this meeting is, well, does this mean that the whole thing is not going to be on the ballot? No, it looks like it will be on the ballot. Okay, now what does that do? What happens to that? Now that here's the challenge to the citizens. The citizens say, no, some citizens say they got enough signatures to put it on the ballot. Okay, so here's what we want to do. Then the government changes its mind. But here's the brilliant part. To me, it's brilliant. Okay, somebody else might say, that's horrible. No, I think it's brilliant. If they had said, we want to overturn this ordinance, then all the commissioners would have to do, listen to this, all the commissioners would have to do is withdraw the ordinance, and now you're not overturning anything. It's no longer on the ballot, and the people don't really get a say in it. And then they could potentially come back in and put the ordinance back in.
I see.
potentially. But that's not what
but
this.
then they'd be right back in the Luba loop again.
Oh, well, yes, without Luba's involvement, because they thought they were going to be winners in this. No, but that's not what the citizens said. What they said is, would you like this to happen? Not would you like to repeal this ordinance? Would you like this whole thing to happen? So if the people vote yes, it would potentially happen without the commissioners. That's confusing, and nobody knows the answer to that, not legal counsel either. But if they come back and they say, no, we don't want this to happen, it doesn't matter whether the commissioners following that, everybody. It doesn't matter what the commissioners have said. They're not repealing something. They're saying, would you like this to happen?
How is it that these people got this on the ballot?
Bunch of signatures.
That sounds like an advisory question to me.
It almost does, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it does. So, okay, but would you like to have?
No, I'm not saying the wording right. I'm sorry, Mike.
Okay.
I don't know the exact wording, but
yeah, because that doesn't make any sense. That you know.
The upshot of the thing is, this is an action that can take place, yes or no. Okay, and if the people say yes, well, they don't think that they will. But if the people say yes, then that's strange, because that would go against the wishes of this number of people in Sunny Valley. This is my understanding of it. Gee, I hope I got this right. Boy, this is convoluted. But if the people say no, then it doesn't matter whether there's an ordinance or not. This is the way they set it up. Let's listen to the commissioners discuss it, and they're going to add in an extra layer. If that is the next clip, I sure hope it is. They're going to add in an extra layer of question marks. You'll see.
This is not the time or place to discuss the merits of the case. Those have already been decided by this county and frankly can't be changed. What we could hear from is people's concerns as far as taking this action, how it affects future elements. Maybe I really don't want to discuss a pending Luba case, so that's probably not something that should be brought up here. If it is remanded, I mean, frankly, I don't want to discuss the case at all, because if it is remanded, this is kind of not been advertised for discussion of the merits of the application. So really shouldn't discuss that stuff here today at all. And I guess that's not a very clear point on what should be up for discussion here for the public, but just the merits of adopting the ordinance, which is really an extension of codifying the findings of facts and everything the board has already done. It really doesn't change anything. We've already made that decision, so, and it really can't be changed. That's all I'll say, I think.
I'm thinking that Simon is heavily in favor of this idea.
Yeah, I'm thinking so. And I'm also thinking that when people come to a meeting of the Board of County Commissioners, and unless it's a hearing where you're supposed to speak only about the topic of the hearing, they can come and talk about anything they want to, can't they? But he doesn't want them to talk about anything that they want to. That's then a little odd. And that's not the way it's going to be done in the future. When people come to say something in a general meeting, they can say something in a general meeting, and it doesn't matter what it is, whether you like it or not. I don't want to listen to this. Then don't listen. You know, the door's right over there. Anyway, now they're going to take it to the back room because, and this is from Thursday, because now the proverbial gravel has hit the fan. Let's hear what they have to say.
This is the Sunny Valley Sand Gravel Ordinance of Implementation. And what has happened is the case was appealed to the Land Use Board of Appeals, and then it was pending while the underlying case actually got remanded. And so we discussed, and it was decided that the county would move to voluntarily remand the case from Luba upon stipulation of all the parties. So nobody objected to that. Everybody thought that was a good idea. The ordinance, however, would need to be repealed at this point. I think it serves no purpose. What I have now realized I cannot give you an answer to at this point is whether that would have the automatic effect of removing it from the ballot. Our new clerk has pointed out that there's another wrinkle in that analysis, and so I'm going to have to come back to clerk and the board as soon as possible to tell you how that would play out. What's happened is,
and that's what we just discussed.
Now, why is this not boring? I don't know. No, I'm going to tell you why it's not boring. It's not boring because once people in general find that they have some power over the decisions of the county commissioners, this really throws a monkey wrench in the works. Because now nobody knows. I mean, look at the amount of money that's at that table. Nobody knows now what they can do or can't do because a group of citizens decided we've had enough of this. We're just not going to allow them to move ahead. And they were successful in that. So if your goal is to slow down government or to change the course of it, you can do that.
Mm-hmm. Unless you're trying to like cut a tree down or something like that.
Yes, unless you're trying to do that. That's exactly right. So some people look at this, that's horrible. Those terrible citizens are going in and they're screwing up the county government. And other people would look at it, hey, good.
Well, listen, at least they live here, for crying out loud. We allowed the economy in this county to be destroyed by a bunch of people who don't even live here. You know, they just came in and did their little thing and headed on out the door. And then, you know, a couple of buddies of theirs filed a lawsuit against, you know, the state or the federal government or whatever, having to do with spotted owls, and done deal. You know, so
right.
So you know, the fact that these people did that, it's their right to pursue this sort of thing. And the only person that appears to be complaining is, well, aside from Simon Hare, Andreas Black. So, you know,
when they first made this decision to go ahead with this, they said Andreas Black can start the trucks rolling immediately because we've done this. And then they said Andreas Black cannot have the trucks roll because we're not sure. So I got up at the meeting and I said, because you've asked us to do this, can he let the trucks roll or not? And nobody even tried to answer that question.
Huh. Well,
they don't know what they're doing, and
they were trying to bluff their way through the darn thing, and hoping that no one would make a stink. Because you know what? If they did this thing and no one made a stink about it, done deal.
That's exactly right. Now, Mike has talked many times on this show. How can you influence your county government? Now, whether you think that this is all smart or all stupid, sorry, that's not actually the point. The point is, how can you affect your county government if you think that they're right or wrong? Okay. And Mike has pointed out several things that you can do that have to do with meetings and other things. You want to just tell us real briefly what is the formula for success by Mike Jones?
Show up, you know, that's generally it. You know, I mean, pay attention. Show up when what you've been watching, you know, leads you to believe that you better show up. Otherwise, some of your rights or privileges or whatever are going to be going down the road, or somebody is about to, you know, institute something that is detrimental to the quality of your life here. Yeah. I mean, this is what has to be done. And unfortunately, you know, we have a little micro sliver right now of people who pay attention to this. It's actually smaller than the number of people that watch our show on a regular basis. The ones that show up regularly, you know, there's maybe 20, 30 of the same people there every time. And listen, I understand a lot of people work. A lot of people have schedules that won't allow them to go there. I hope that they're watching online or something along those lines. But if you're not paying attention, you're not going to care enough about anything to go, oh, I better show up for that.
And then you've got helicopters out your window and trucks roaring down your street.
Right. So I think that paying attention, I mean, this is a big problem, and I understand it's a pain to pay attention to this stuff all the time, because there's plenty of other exciting things for you to be doing that are more entertaining than watching the weekly business session and paying attention to what's happening in politics. But if we're losing our country, and that's something that you believe, it's not happening, solely on a national level. We're losing, county by county. Listen, if you don't pay attention, then the people that you have elected, be they good or bad, are getting their way. And
if you're finding it hard to understand, there's a reason for that. If you're finding that it's super boring, this show, a number of people have said to us, well, you're making it interesting. Sure, we're making it interesting, but who's making it boring and uninteresting? And why would they want to make it boring, uninteresting, and hard to understand? Gee, I wonder why. Because then you're going to go find something else to do.
Yeah, I listen, I don't really think that there is a whole lot of energy being put toward trying to make it boring. I think that
it comes automatically.
I think that it's by its very nature, it is boring, and that's why, responsibility is not always something that people like to exercise. However, it is our duty, either in a family circumstance or, it's your responsibility to do the things that you don't want to do, to make sure that you meet, certain requirements, that your kid has food, your kid has clothing, your kid, is sufficiently prepared to be educated, and then to be educated. And, all of these things, these are responsibilities that we have. Well, we're basically pitching our government oversight responsibility out the window. And, it's not like this is a new thing, like we've just gotten this responsibility, and it really, sadly, it isn't a requirement that you have some understanding of what's going on in your community before you can go down and flip a lever or gray out a circle in order to make decisions about it. You really ought to understand it. You ought to pass a test showing that you understand it before you're, and a lot of people will object to that. And I think that's too bad. People really need to understand, people really need to pay attention, because if you don't, the people, and most likely there'll be people that you don't like, or they're doing things which are detrimental to your life, are going to be in charge and are going to be doing those things. So, for crying out loud.
Well, okay. And I'll give
you
an
hour a week, a week.
I'll give you another example. So, what happens on Wednesday mornings? There's the weekly business session. So, and how important the budget committee is to the functioning of county government. It is, there's the magical budget. There's the magical budget, and they can do anything that they want to with this budget, because there's money galore in there. Anytime, it's like Felix and his magical bag. You can pull anything out of there, and suddenly there's your Mercedes, to take Simon Hare on his, to escort him around with a chauffeur in a limousine. Okay. So all of this stuff is possible. So, but you didn't come to the Wednesday weekly business session where Jim Brumbach was put on the budget committee again. Jim Brumbach, the guy that was up in front of that church, where the pastor was saying, if you question authority, it's like Satan worship. Got another guy. I was there, and he never said that. Oh, brother, I don't know how to help that guy, right? So, so Jim Brumbach was a heavy guy on that, okay, and pressing for the levy. 5 out of 6 people on the budget committee are super strong pushers for the levy.
Yeah.
And Jim Brumbach is one of them. Now,
and oddly enough, that does not represent the community at all. It represents one view of the community. It doesn't represent the community. Yeah.
Those are the perennial losers. Now, you could come and say, hey, wait a minute, but you didn't. So Jim Brumbaugh is on again. Now, that kind of thing can be reversed with 2 new commissioners, because then it would be 3 that are against a levy and 3 that are strongly for a levy. Okay. And so there it's a little bit more balanced out, but they are not going to, these commissioners are not going to, they're going to stack the deck at every possible opportunity. Here was your chance to do that, but you didn't. So honestly speaking, what can you do? Yes, we would like you to come and speak up, but that's sort of boring about who's on a budget committee, except it will have an effect on everything for the next year. So what can you do? You could send a letter. Obviously, most people are not doing that, okay? You could go on Facebook and like our videos, or put a little like next to our videos that we send out here. That's helpful, because then it shows, because people are paying attention. Mm-hmm. They are paying attention. We are now at the point where, with our nightly show and with the other videos that we put out, that we get 1,000 views a week. That's decent. It's not everything, but it's decent. And all of the movers and shakers in local politics know about our show, watch our show, react very strongly to our show, and hate our show. Many of them do.
Yes.
And this is show 385 in a row. So we're taking it seriously. So all that we're asking you to do is watch it, tell your neighbors about it, click like if you like it, click dislike if you don't, or you can do that. Why are you watching the show? Participate maybe in the polls. We would like you to do a little bit more. If we do get 2 fiscal conservatives in that would want to turn this whole thing around, because they can do it at the very first meeting, and have now the commissioners are paying attention to you rather than them demanding that you come and pay homage to them, which they do. And if they did that, as we've been telling you, that recall effort's going to start the first day. It's going to start before those people take office. So one of the reasons why we want to kind of get you up to speed is, whoever those 2 people are, they're going to need your help, because their necks are going to be on the chopping block before day 1.
Yeah, it's true.
All right, a little bit more of this meeting, and then we're going to tell you the big bombshell that goes along with this whole discussion, that will prove to you that the stuff that seems like it's really boring is not boring, baby. Go ahead, Mike.
So the board passed an ordinance. The board may opt ultimately to repeal the ordinance, but it was the citizen and the electorate who, through the referendum process, placed it onto the ballot. It wasn't the board that put it on the ballot. And so
The law send to the voters if we repeal it. If you repeal it by the voters, it's already done. There's nothing.
You're right. The thing is, and this is not a complete analysis, but well, it may go on the ballot, because what the voters are being asked to do is to approve an ordinance, not to repeal one.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying there?
Exactly.
It's so you repeal it, but if they approve it, then it's been approved. The upshot is that, in my opinion, would have no actual effect in terms of implementing.
So the answer is plan the answer.
That's the answer.
How do we refine our process in the future? So I know we've gone all over the board, no pun intended, that maybe the practice of not approving an ordinance till we get through the process.
You think?
I don't know. I'm thinking out loud a little bit. But from the standpoint that we have resolution by all parties concerned, and we have given, by the state, the authority to approve an ordinance, meaning it's appealable to the voters at that point, but preempting that by approving an ordinance that hasn't gone through the process puts us in this situation of the voter being asked to do something and then having authority to make a decision on it yet, probably the ruled and valid.
Didn't he have that opportunity? I mean,
yes.
People were talking to him about it in that meeting.
That's right.
And he's, oh, no, hey, what we've done, It's
I don't
rock
even want to
solid,
listen
can't be
to
changed.
don't even bother talking to me about it. That's right.
Oh, maybe if we had thought about this and let it go through its entire process first, then perhaps we wouldn't be in this situation that we are right now. That's very profound.
I know it's got to seem like we're awfully critical of these guys, but what a lunkhead move.
That's stupid. That was dumb. So perhaps they should have thought, well, you know what? Obviously he was hot to get that thing passed, which I got to tell you is fishy in itself, because politicians are never in favor of getting things done for the community that are constructive in any way. They don't do that sort of thing. They're typically the roadblock that stops you from getting something done. So what is really going on here?
Right. What is the motivation? I understand the capitalism part of it. I do. What is the motivation to say to a community, a little bedroom community, no, we're going to let these gravel trucks go up and down your roads here, and to reclassify your entire area?
I don't know, but and as I've said before, listen, if I happen to own a house that's in an area where there's some gravel, should everybody who owns a house near a place where gravel trucks use the road then be able to nix any gravel project?
It depends on which comes first, doesn't it?
Yes, I suppose it does, because but this isn't the only gravel operation in the county. There are a number of them.
This is one of them owned by Andreas Blech.
Right. And another notable thing is that out in is it Williams or not Williams, but what's on your way out to Williams, what's the oh Lord, I'm getting in trouble with people because I don't know my county geography. Anyway, there is a gravel place out there that when they're running, sometimes they're running all night, all day, and they do bother the crap out of people, and so listen, that's a legit thing. But the bottom line is that you should by now in the history of this county have some sort of a procedure in place for dealing with these things, these questions.
Well, one of the things that comes up is, will the Land Use Board of Appeal say you can't do this? And what people were trying to say, quite reasonable, there were people, okay, all right, there's always those people, all right, but there were other people.
Can you repeat that thing again, Dale?
No, I know.
Couldn't hear what you were saying.
No, but I can't. But there are. I refuse. But there were also other people who said, wait a minute, doesn't it make sense for you to wait to see what the Land Use Board of Appeals rules, and then you won't have to reverse yourselves later?
Yes, seems logical.
And that's what Simon just said. Gee, that, and I'm real sorry that his levels are so low. I have boosted his levels 600%, and then had to try to make it so that it's not just, Yeah. So I've done the best that I can to make the guy audible, but he was talking like this. This was very hard to understand what he was saying to us. He knows what he's doing.
He quite often does that.
Play more of that video, please, and then I'll give you the big news at the end of all this.
The big news. Okay, here we go.
What do you mean?
It would be like approving something that's constitutionally improper. We're going to remove all the guns from Josephine County. Well, there's the Second Amendment. You can pass that, but it doesn't matter. The Second Amendment is up there. Maybe that's a poor example, but
maybe not though, because during the ballot title challenge, the constitutional permissibility of actually putting this kind of question on a ballot was brought up. They attempted to bring it up, and then ultimately that case was dismissed.
Can we exercise an opportunity to get an answer to that? I mean, that would fundamentally solve all of these problems. That land use decisions can't be appealed to the voters. Provision for that. I know that we've asked for declaratory judgments from the judge before in the past on controversial issues that we just want to know the answer to.
Potentially, the clerk, it's technically kind of in the clerk's, it's kind of in the clerk's right now. maybe, maybe not. I don't have a final answer on that piece.
While you're working on the other question, I would like to know that.
Yeah, just
Okay, so that's the end of that tape for us. So here's the thing. Because they keep mentioning the clerk might make some decisions. The clerk, the county clerk would, in their opinion, have to make some kind of decision about what's going to happen with this question on the ballot, because this directly goes and confronts the commissioners saying, where these citizens are going to take over on this thing because they think that you're making the wrong decision. So I went and talked with our new clerk. Now, keep in mind, this is not the previous clerk. And when you ask this lady a question, she doesn't give you two opposite answers on the same day, which literally we were getting from Art Harvey. He would say yes, and then he would say no. So I believe this lady when she tells us stuff. So I went and I talked to her and I said, they just talked about you in this little back room. And would you go on camera with us? No, I'd prefer not to go on camera. I think she's camera shy rather than trying to evade it. I want to believe that. So eventually she's going to have to say something in front of a camera, not ours necessarily, but the commissioners. And I said, okay, so they were just saying this. Now, what's going to happen with all of this? And she gave pretty much the same answer that they did, that nobody really knows exactly what's going to happen. That's not the controversial part. And that it's going to go through and the citizens are going to vote. And the citizens, as I was saying before, the tactic that they chose, which is really throwing everybody for a tailspin, is, do you want this thing rather than do you want to repeal it? Would you be in favor of it? And then Simon, you just heard him saying with legal counsel, well, but they can't do that. Well, nobody really knows what's going to happen now. This is just, everything is up in the air. But here's the interesting thing that she said to me. She said, well, this goes on the ballot because the citizens have gathered the signatures, okay? Unless a judge comes in and removes it from the ballot. What? And I said, wait a minute. This is the news of the day. All the rest of that doesn't matter. What you just said to me is the news of the day, Mike.
It would have to be some sort of an opinion based on law, I would think, or precedent at least.
Now, but here's the point. The citizens get together their signatures. They put something on the ballot by the initiative process. And a judge, what kind of judge could come in and remove it from the ballot?
It probably the same kind of judge who doesn't think the word permanent means, who thinks the word permanent means always and forever until the end of time.
Permanent's used in law all the time, but here's the really interesting part about this, and this is part of the discussion I had with her. I understand that the citizens can decide that they must require all citizens, everybody else, to wear a blue shirt on Wednesdays. I got that, okay? And a judge could come in and say, no, that's unconstitutional after it's been passed. But what she's saying is a judge could come in, remove it from the ballot, before any actions have been taken by any voters. Now, where does a judge get that power? And what kind of judge, where is this kind of judge? And why would a judge do that? Just think about that. In the American system, here in Oregon, in Josephine County, there's truly the provision for a judge. Where does a judge get that kind of power?
Yeah, I don't know.
The ballot?
But I mean, let's understand this is a completely hypothetical scenario. There's no indication that this is something that's going to take place. It's just, well, it's a possibility in the list of all possibilities.
No, I'm not
right?
suggesting everybody ought to be alarmed, but you remember when with our previous sheriff that they were talking about their emergency operations plan. And as it turned out, there was a codicil in there that said that if the sheriff wants to, he could go to your house during an emergency and see stuff that he wants and grab it up and take it without even leaving you a note.
Right.
Now, it doesn't mean that's going to happen. That's not the point. But what kind of constitutional sheriff okays something like that? First, he said, well, I don't know that's in, and then he said, well, I do know it's in there. Well, wait a minute. I don't or I do? Which one is it? He said both. Okay, so he's covered on that. Well, I knew it, I didn't know it. Well, he's like Simon Harry, he said both. That's not a constitutional sheriff to me. Okay, not meaning that he wasn't on
Yeah.
anything, but on that he
No.
definitely wasn't. Okay, so where do people get such a power? And well, don't worry, I'll never use it. I don't want you to have that kind of power in the first place. Don't tell me, give me the power, but I'll never use it. No, 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 no. So really, a judge has the power to take it off the ballot before you voted on it in America? Mm-mm.
Yeah, well, listen, what difference, how is that any different from, listen, in the mid 90s, Prop 187 was there that said that we didn't want to pay for, benefits, welfare and things of that nature for illegal aliens. And it won overwhelmingly. And it was thrown out in the court. So what's the difference in
I'll tell
doing
you
that,
the difference
or
is it was
the
thrown
court
out
taking it off the ballot before it even gets on?
because in that is the difference. In one place, the people get the chance to, because they put it on the ballot. We want to
Okay.
vote on this, and they got their chance to vote on it.
Right.
In the other, now it's creeping because the judge apparently can come in before it's been on the ballot and you've had your chance to vote on it in America and say, I will not allow you to vote on that. No, that's not the way our system works.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you that in California, it was actually worse because it would have been better had we not been able to vote on the darn thing, because everybody did vote and we won huge, and then they stole it from us.
Okay, I don't like either one.
And that wasn't the only thing. I mean, they've yeah, I don't like either one either, but what I'm saying is I don't see those two things as being any different. And you're saying there's no precedent for this other thing. I'm saying they do this other thing all the time. What's the difference?
Yeah, well, I do see a difference. I see
that being said, there isn't okay.
Yeah, I'm just saying, yeah, I agree with you. It's bad that you vote
not
for
saying it's
something,
good.
and then somebody comes in and says, okay, you don't get what you voted on. Totally, I understand that, and that's happened dozens and dozens of times.
That's but the impetus is the same. In the case of this situation with 187, what was it? It was political activism on the court. And the same thing would be going on in this situation. You'd have to have some sort of an activist judge that was doing a favor for somebody or saw some reason why this couldn't be done. And of course, in this situation, there's the only one possibility that could be, and that political activism on behalf of one of your friends or something.
This to me is another tick of the wheel in the wrong direction, because it's very much like in journalism. There's something called prior restraint, and prior restraint is when a judge or some government organization says, we're not going to allow you to print something before you've printed it. They can go after you after you've printed it or after it's been on the air, but what they're saying is, we're going to stop you before you've said anything. Prior restraint is really now talking about a chilling effect on everything. It's one thing if you get in trouble after you've done it. It's another thing if they tell you, we have now assumed the responsibility to tell you that you can't share that information with anybody. I don't like it.
Okay.
So that to me is the difference. It's prior restraint in a different way. Yeah. The effect is the same,
right.
And
so that's somehow better. That if somebody, if you do say, I don't like donuts, and then they force donuts on you, it's the same.
No, it's like they're saying, I'm not even going to allow you
whatever. I mean,
to bake the donuts. I'm not even going to allow you to bake the donuts because these are donuts that are against the people.
Well, you're right. One of them gives people the illusion that their privilege of speaking out is going to be effective, and the other one says you can't even have your right to speak out. I think Yeah, I don't see those as really being one being worse than the other, because they're both to some degree Lucy pulling the football.
Yes, yes, they are. So on that happy note, no, we're not going to just leave it exactly there. What I'm going to say is that these citizens in these two cases, but we'll talk just about Sunny Valley, this group of citizens decided they want to affect things, and they're going to the ballot box, buddy. And so, and that's causing some major heartaches for the people who decided to go down this direction, even though they tried to warn them, just like the 80% of the voters did, 78%, for the sales tax, just like we did on the 4 junk ordinances, just like we did on letting our feelings known to Keith Heck, who said, well, I'll give it a good old college try, after he had promised he wasn't going to do that. You do have some kind of effect. This particular show does have some kind of effect. It makes people really irritated, but they respond to this, and they're jumping back when you give these responses, or when we talk about it, or when you tell us what you think. So we're going to encourage you, Mike's going to get this email address up there, once again, to send us an email if you have not been able to find the recall petition for Simon Hare, or anyone that's putting together the signatures. Don't quite know what's going on with that. Keep asking that guy. We're not getting any answers at all. We're going to talk about that in a future show. Okay. Are we where is anybody where it needs to be? We don't know. Okay. So, but you can get this thing from him. You can tell us what you think about it. You can say, Mike Jones, you stink. Don't tell me that. Or any other thing that you want. Mike, why don't you put that up, bud? So send that to Mike Jones, you stink, at cpros.com.
Right. Yes. Right. No, actually, if you actually want the Simon Hare recall petition, the great thing about the electronic petition is it doesn't require that you go find a petition, a volunteer, and stand there while he witnesses you filling out all the information on it. You can download this thing and put your name, I believe your address, and then you sign it and date it, and then you send it in, and the address of the chief petitioner is on this form, and you just mail it to him, and ultimately it becomes part of the collection of signatures, which will determine whether or not Simon Hare's recall is on the ballot in May. So I encourage you to respond to that. But the fantastic thing about it is it can be done at your leisure. We can tell you, and potentially everybody in the county could hear it at this time. And I wish they would tune in. So it would be nice if you did that. And at this particular email address right here, thatcounty@cpros.com.
So what we're about,
and chew us out on any other topic you want.
Absolutely. So what we're about is, whether that's a really good idea or not, we're about giving you the power to say what you think. We're going to give you the information so that you'll be armed with that. We're going to encourage you to talk with your neighbors and tell them what you've seen and what you've heard, how things are going. We're trying to provide information to you so that you know what's coming up, rather than just watching, here's what happened yesterday, because that's helpful, but not as helpful as telling you what is coming, and trying to prepare you for that and give you the facts so that you can come to a meeting or talk to your neighbor, or just sit there and talk to yourself about what is, what's a good thing to do or a bad thing to do. An informed population is a better America.